You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
You've had a long day at work, and you can't wait to just get home, take off your shoes, plop yourself down in your favorite chair, and relax. You walk up to your tranquil residential home and your neatly manicured lawn in your quiet suburban neighborhood, put the key in the lock, open the door, and... Yes, the pets have gone wild! What were you thinking? Welcome to the show about everything you always wanted to know about exotic pets. Where to get them, what to feed them, and how to care for them. You'll even find out why some people live with a monkey. Now, here's your host, exotic pet expert and author Bob Tart. Hey, Bob, what were you thinking?
Hi, I'm Bob Tart, author of the books Enslaved by Ducks and Foul Weather. And you're listening to What Were You Thinking? And I'm here with my wife, Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hello.
We had been doing a show on African gray parrots today, and we're still going to talk about African gray parrots, but it is a cold, cold day here in West Michigan. When we woke up this morning, we woke up to a very pleasant, balmy temperature of zero degrees. Mm-hmm. It is just so hard to get anything done when it's that cold. It's funny because you can understand why it's hard doing the outdoor chores, but I think even indoor things are harder to do, aren't they?
You just feel a little more sluggish in general, probably from having been outside and came in and trying to thaw yourself out.
Yeah, I was trying to do the exercise bike last week because I haven't done any exercise in 12, 15 years. So I thought maybe I would, try and work up to maybe...
Get the old heart going.
Yeah, get the heart going. Maybe work up to doing 2.5 minutes on the exercise bike. And
you do a lot more than that.
And I think I tired myself out doing that, too. But there's just something about this weather here in Michigan, in the northern hemisphere, this time of year.
Makes you wish you were a bear hibernating till May.
Yeah, and I've tried, but they don't appreciate that at work. Mm-hmm. So I have to go in every day. But even the cats are acting really squirrely.
Sluggish, yeah.
Well, they want things. They're very restless. We have a cat named Franny who loves going outdoors, and so she's not very happy being indoors. I have one of these little laser lights that's, a toy, and she wants me to play with that, not just in the evening.
18 hours a day,
18 hours
possible.
a day. So already in the evening when I'm trying to sit and read, I have this cat giving me a sad look, so I have to get out the laser toy and play with her.
You do have to confine that to evenings, don't you?
I really...
Otherwise, if you did that one time, any other time of day, you'd be doing that for eternity.
I would, because that's the thing with cats.
The thing with cats.
You do something for them once,
and it's as if you'll have to do it forever. That's the way they act about it.
That's exactly right.
Such a new precedent.
I had a good surprise this morning that went along with the 0 degree temperature. I went into the kitchen, and I had left the faucet dripping a little bit overnight because I didn't want our pipes to freeze. The people who designed our house back in 1906 left a channel right next to the outside wall in the basement, and for some reason whoever ran the water pipes decided that channel where cold air gets in is the best.
Doesn't need to be insulated.
No, it doesn't need to be insulated, and that's a really good place to put the pipes. So if I don't leave the water dripping on days when it gets to 0 or below, the water freezes, and I must have just had the hot water turned on and dripping because the cold water pipe was frozen. So I had to go down in the basement and take a hairdryer and stick it in that little space and blast it with hot air. And it's a very fussy little pipe, and it's a very hard space to try and wedge anything into. And it didn't want to thaw, and I had to move that thing 2 or 3 times until finally it got thawed. So that was a great start to the morning.
Yeah, it usually thaws after a couple minutes, but didn't it take probably 10, 12 minutes or longer?
Yeah, it took a while.
So it made him think it wasn't going to thaw.
Well, I thought maybe you would enjoy hearing, especially if you're somewhere warm and you're fairly comfortable, or if you're in another part of the world where you don't have to face these kinds of temperatures, that you might enjoy hearing the kinds of things we have to
people
do.
go through in Michigan.
Yeah, so Linda, you want to talk a little bit about what our chores outside are like this time of year? You know, what you did this morning, or, well, I guess I did them this
He
morning,
did the morning
but still.
chores while I was making breakfast.
But
But
still.
I was out just a few minutes ago.
And you do this
to
every
check
other
the
morning.
buckets and to check the pools. We have the pool down with the geese, and when we've got a pool out in the barn. But now today we've got the barn door closed because Bob felt this is the first day of the year, isn't it, that we've had the barn door closed?
It is, because it's so cold. Why open it up? Let's describe the layout a little bit. We have, in the backyard, we have quite a large pen, and that's our goose pen. And we have a little structure.
Divided. There's 2 pens and a sort of an L-shaped pen, then another separate pen in case we have a goose that needs to go in a separate pen.
In case there's a naughty goose, we have to isolate.
And then there's a small storage barn attached to it.
Yeah, and even though we say it's a storage barn, we don't store anything in it. It's got straw in it.
It's where they sleep if they feel like it.
So that's where they go to get out of the cold. But even though they can go there to get out of the cold, leave it to the geese to be out in the coldest weather.
Although they did sleep in that last night, and I believe they do. When it gets really cold, they break down and sleep in there.
And then we have a barn, and it's quite a large old barn. And attached to the barn in back are 2 very large pens. And so we open the doors, typically in warmer weather. In fact, we always open the doors. And then our ducks and hens, and occasionally turkeys when we have them, they can
Go out there and play.
They can walk in and out as they wish.
And there's a children's swimming pool outside the door in the both for the geese and for the not the chickens, for the ducks, and we have to fill those a couple times a day.
And also in the goose pen there.
That's right, yeah. In the goose pen too, there's a children's swimming pool, and that has to be changed. Today that was iced over, and the bucket was definitely iced over. It's just a very small space they could get their water, so I dumped it all out. Luckily, we use these buckets that are made out of rubber, and you can take your boot and crush them and get all the ice out and start over again.
You can literally jump up and down on those.
They're just wonderful buckets.
And they don't break.
They're just wonderful. You couldn't live without them in Michigan winters, I'll tell you that.
So how is it different filling the backyard pools in the summer and in the winter? What would you say the differences are about how we do it?
Well, I do it the same way all the time. I take the broom, turn
Except
it
where the
upside down,
hose is.
and we have in the summer we have an outside spigot. We hook that up too. In the winter, we have a laundry sink in the basement. The hose has to be drug into the basement entirely so that it doesn't freeze at any time, and so that's what you have to put up with in the winter.
Yeah, and in the
having
winter,
the basement floor covered with a garden hose all the time.
Right, that's right. And what happens when we take that hose out in the wintertime?
It catches in the door.
It catches in the
As
door.
Bob describes in his book.
Yeah, in foul weather, I write about the hose
demon.
The hose demon, and that's some malicious spirit that seems to have possessed our hose. And if the hose isn't catching on the smallest little pit in the concrete in the basement, and it can be just maybe a molecule-sized pit.
Just absolutely nothing
Or
will
it
hold
catches,
it down.
or it catches on the rim of the door, the edge of the door. I couldn't do that on
Nothing
purpose.
there to hold it, believe me, but it will find some excuse. The idea is to get us to walk all the way back up the hill and walk all the way back down again, as if we don't get enough exercise anyway.
And when there's a big snowpack, that's no fun at all, because you really got to dress warm to go outside. And if the hose isn't catching on things, it's kinking. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing like making it all the way down the hill.
To find now the water is not flowing
No,
for
there's
some
no water.
unaccountable reason, and it's because there's a kink in there.
So this morning I went up and I pulled out one kink, and I was all happy. I walked down and I looked at the end of the hose, nothing. Mm-hmm. So again, walk up, step over the fence, walk up, and then find where it was twisted again. And this is some special, fancy, never have a kink in it hose that I paid extra money for. Mm-hmm. And I think
it's a few years old. Maybe it needs replaced. But they're all like that,
yeah,
even when they're brand new.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's what we do.
This is life in the winter.
This is life in the winter. And on those days when we forget to empty the pools at night and it gets very cold,
you got an inch of ice or more.
Mm-hmm. So how do we get the ice out?
Bang it real hard with the back of the broom to get it out of there, to break it, and then you have to swish it out with the back of the broom too.
Now you might not think that ducks and geese would care about water when it's so cold outside.
They do. They'll swim any time of the year, 365 days a year.
And it does make sense if you think about it, because if the air temperature is 0, water temperature is
32
degrees. 33, that's right. It's warmer than 32. And so it's their little sauna. And it's certainly a lot warmer than the ground, so I guess it just makes sense. So
even as we speak, I'm looking out the back window. There's 2 great big fat geese standing in the pool.
I have been feeling sorry for the critters in the barn, and Linda especially. Linda's been after me to try and do something about it because it gets so cold there. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I do worry about that. It's just especially for elderly chickens, ducks, geese, anything. A younger creature is not affected so much by cold, especially these type of animals that can put up with just about any temperature. But as they get very elderly, it's a different story. They need to have a little more heat.
We've never really known what to do about the cold because
we don't want to burn our barn down with some space heater.
Yeah, we've talked to people, and they even say you have to be very careful with the heat lamp because heat lamps get hot enough that maybe they could ignite the straw.
You just don't know what could happen in the middle of the night.
But we've been using this oil-filled radiator heater in our dining room where we have the birds. And it looks like an old-fashioned radiator. It's on wheels. And the thing about it is that there's no exposed heating element, and it never gets so hot that you can't touch it with your hand.
It's not terribly hot.
You're not going to want to lay your hand on it for any length of time, but
it's not dangerously hot.
So I thought maybe there's some way we could put that out in the barn and do some good with it without burning the barn down, which is probably to be avoided.
You just,
because that would warm them up for a little
idea.
while. No,
yeah.
They'd be warm a little bit, but I think a little too warm.
Would come out of it.
So what I did was we had, you never know what you're going to find in our barn, and one of the previous owners left a wooden pallet in the barn. So I put that in the middle of the floor in the central area of our barn, which is pretty darn big. And I put that there to elevate the heater off the floor so that was away from the straw. And then I found one of our old rabbit cages and took the metal tray out of there and put the heater on the tray. And then to make things even more complicated, I stapled some chicken wire to the edges of the pallet and then added another layer on top of that so that...
Just so they won't go in there and stand on it or but too close to it.
Yeah, leave it to a hen to decide, say, oh, there's a little fenced-in area. I think I'll fly in there.
Right.
And they would do that, too.
Because weren't we thinking about putting chicken wire over the top? But then they would roost on the top of it. Mm-hmm. And then debris might fall down.
Or they might get too hot. So I put that in there for the first time on Friday. I wasn't sure if it would do any good at all. In fact, when I came out there Friday night, I touched the metal fencing that was near the heater, and it was just
stone cold.
Stone cold to the touch. So I came in the house grumbling that that darn thing wasn't going to do any good. But Saturday morning, it was only 5 degrees. And I walked out into the barn, and it was 30 degrees.
So you know it's doing something.
I knew the thermometer wasn't completely lying because our water buckets were not frozen. The water wasn't frozen, so that thing was actually helping.
That's right, and that makes a big difference to those animals.
And my hope had been, I didn't think of heating the whole inside of the barn, or at least the center area, but my hope had been that, the animals would all huddle around the heater.
Near it.
They don't go anywhere near it.
No, and I don't think it necessarily puts out a direct heat. I just think it adds a few more degrees of temperature overall, which is what they need, really.
But in the dining room, when we have that heater going at night, our big fat cat Lucy
lays near it.
So there is some heat coming off of it. But in years past,
this is a smaller room, and
right now
this is a temperature a few degrees.
In years past, we had heat lamps in our little goose house, and they never took to that.
They never would go in there. They were red looking, and I think they were afraid of them.
Yeah, you would look out our window into the backyard, and it looked like we had a haunted house, because there are the duck pens, and then you have a window in the little shed attached to it, and there's this red light blazing from that storage shed. And I don't think they like that red light.
Not one animal inside there.
No, and so we had a winter where we kept those heat lamps going. They would never go inside to take advantage of it at all.
Not at all. That was no good.
Nope, not at all. But, we are still trying to think of some way of heating that room. I have heard of ceramic heat lamps that don't put out any light. So I don't know if that's a solution or not, because again, heat lamps I'm a little afraid of because we have straw on the floor and we don't want to burn it down. Linda suggested getting another one of those oil-filled radiator heaters.
Because there's a separate pen in there. We could put that in that pen.
I'm just a little nervous about that because it's a small area. Maybe it'd be no problem at all.
If you put it at a low enough temperature, it'd probably be all right.
Well, I'm also a little bit worried about the wiring in our house. This is an old house, and if you look at a heater wrong, it'll pop a circuit breaker in our house.
So it happens in our house frequently.
So that's all I need would be to put that heater outside and turn it on, and then us to pop.
3 rooms in the house, the lights go off.
Right. So I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe somebody listening to this will have an idea.
Brilliant idea about how to heat little areas.
Yeah, what I did was, at Linda's suggestion and also suggestion of Peg Markle at Wildlife Rehab Center, I got some tarps, some plastic sheets, and I put them on 2 sides, so at least there's a windbreak in the pen.
She said that's what's important. And she said make the straw 12 inches thick so they have a place to lay down, both inside their storage barn and in the main barn. And in the pen outside, I put it real thick there too, because they like to lay outside a lot.
So we'll see how that works. Okay, you are listening to What Were You Thinking with Bob and Linda, and we will be right back after this word from our sponsor.
What Were You Thinking? We'll be right back after Bob gets the ducks out of his living room. Don't go away.
Stop what you're doing and start horsing around. Every week on Pet Life Radio, horse expert and award-winning rider Audrey Pavia will be trotting out great tips on feeding, breeding, and more on everything equestrian. So set a spell and say hey to Audrey and get ready for a darn tootin' galloping good time. Every week on Horsing Around, on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.
Pets are part of the family, and when traveling with your dog, there's only one magazine to include when packing your doggie's duffel bag, and that's Fido Friendly, the travel and lifestyle magazine for you and your dog. Each bi-monthly issue includes hotel, city, and state reviews, and doggy destinations to explore with your furry companion. Fido Friendly magazine can be found at Borders, Barnes & Noble, PetSmart, Pet Boutiques, and Fido Friendly hotels nationwide. Or you can go online to subscribe at www.fidofriendly.com. So get traveling with your pet today and leave no dog behind. And remember, Fido Friendly's the only magazine dedicated to the travel lifestyle of man's best friend, and the one magazine your dog will thank you for.
It's time to start scratching for donations for the Humane Society of Broward County's Walk for the Animals, presented by VCA Animal Hospitals. The walk is Saturday, March 1st at Esplanade Park in downtown Fort Lauderdale. You'll need a registration form, so stop by any VCA Animal Hospital, IHOP, the Museum of Discovery and Science, or the Humane Society. This event is also brought to you by Big 1059, Comcast, Purina One,
PetLifeRadio.com,
Tidy Cats, and the Herald. Call 954-266-6817 or log on to walk4theanimals.com for more details. See you there.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com. Okay, ducks are in the pond, rabbits in his hutch, and monkeys... Oh, in my car! Oh, okay, well, I go check my insurance policy. We'll turn you back over to Bob.
Hi, welcome back to What Were You Thinking? And this is our 0-degree weather show. And it's very cold out. I shouldn't say 0 degree because Boy, that thermometer has really climbed. It's
to 14 degrees.
14 degrees, and it's 2:30 almost in the afternoon. I think we're not going to see it much higher. Maybe it'll go up to 16.
It was 10 for a long time.
One kind of nice thing about this weather is the number of woodpeckers that we're seeing outside. You want to talk about them a little bit, Linda?
Well, this tree right outside our back window beside the deck, I counted, 5 or 6. There's a suet block hanging there, and Bob was in the other room, and I counted at least 5, but I think there was one more. 6. There was some downies and a hairy. The red belly was somewhere else, but we have all 3 kinds that go out there. And there was 3 of them right on the suet block, on opposite sides of the suet block. And then there's 2 more, one above and one below. And then there was another one floating around somewhere else near the tree. So just that whole tree, we're starting to call that tree the woodpecker tree.
Yeah, there was.
We get so many. We keep the suet out 365 days a year, and so we just have a huge amount of woodpeckers that come. We just love them.
Yeah, there was a time yesterday when Linda told me to look outside, and we saw on or around that tree 3 male red-bellied woodpeckers, and then on the suet or near it there were 2 hairy woodpeckers, and then around the tree and up further on the tree, how many downies were there? 4 or 5 maybe?
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're from the same family, just a lot of them.
We had a really nice bird sighting Friday, and it's not often that I see birds that get me really excited that I see in our own driveway when I pull in. Friday, I had just come home from work after a hard 1 hour. Well, it was a little more than an hour, but I only work mornings. And I was unloading some feed, and I heard this real exuberant sound, woodpecker sound, from across the street. And I looked, and there was a pileated woodpecker. Our cat Maynard just came in to bother us. Maynard, go downstairs. So we don't see pileated woodpeckers very often, do we?
No, it was a thrill.
And what was the female doing?
She was up on this cluster of grapevine that had some little tiny grapes that were frozen and shriveled up, but she had found that and she's all excited about it. She was kind of popping around in there eating grapes, and she was just kind of cuddled in this viney retreat there eating grapes. And even though I think she saw us, she didn't seem too afraid. And I ran and got my binoculars, and I thought it was a male, but Bob said it was a female. They have kind of a red tufty thing on top of their head, but Bob said it was smaller than what the males are.
Well, the
beautiful bird.
They both have the red on the head, but the males have a red, sort of a mustache line, and on her it was black, and that's by the mouth.
She stayed there a long time.
Yeah, these birds,
just beautiful.
These pileateds are usually fairly shy. We don't see them all that often, so that's why it was amazing to see
Real
her
treat.
Right out in the open.
Straight across the street, very close.
Now, while I was watching her and trying to take pictures of her, she flew away.
Over the top of our house, and who knows where she went. She could have went across the river. We've been looking for her ever since. I haven't seen her.
And
but who knows? Maybe she'll get the nerve up to go to our suet block sometime.
But there was an interesting reason why she flew off.
The eagle. We saw an eagle, too.
Yeah, there was
bald-headed eagle.
I saw a shadow, and, in the warmer weather, when you see a shadow like that from a big bird, I usually just assume a soaring bird like that is a turkey vulture. We don't get them this time of year, but I glanced up and there was a bald eagle just at treetop level soaring over. We don't see those very often. We see them a few times a year.
It's very clearly a bald eagle. It had the white head, the black body. It was just gorgeous.
So just getting out of my car, I see a pileated woodpecker and I see a bald eagle. So that's pretty good.
It was a great day.
Now, we had an unusual show last week, and that was this very scripted show in the first half with book character Bill Holm and Marcia Davis. Let us know what you think of that. This show is completely unscripted, and if it's better or worse, it's got to be better than that. But let us know what you think of that. I wanted to correct something that I said. Luckily, it was on the first portion of the show, in which everything was essentially a lie anyway. But I had said that Enslaved by Ducks was the #1 pet book on Amazon.com. I meant to say that it has been the #1 pet bird book on Amazon.com. It's not #1 right now. I think it's 2 or 3, but for...
Changes all the time.
Yeah, it changes. But for a long period, last year, it was the #1 best-selling pet bird book. And
pretty good.
One of these weeks, Not today. One of these weeks we're going to have a big announcement to make about enslaved by ducks.
Something really nice.
Oh, it's something amazing.
Really nice.
But we've been asked not to say anything until we have to hold our announcement until someone else makes an announcement. So we might have some really big news about the book. If you want to be on our show talking about your exotic pet, and that means anything but a cat or a dog, just because they're not considered exotics.
Yep, give us a call.
Well, I don't think they can call us, but they can email me at bob@petliferadio.com. That's bob@petliferadio.com. Some people email me at info@petliferadio.com, and that's quite a coincidence because info is my middle name, so I don't know how that happened. But please, if you email us, tell us that you're emailing because you want to be on the show, because sometimes people email me and they'll tell me a story about a bird or something like that, and it's a good story, but I'm not sure if that means they want to be on the show. So,
Just tell us if you do want to.
Yeah, don't be shy. We're going to be talking to somebody later this week for next week's show. Linda's going to interview a woman who owns chinchilla. We don't know anything about chinchillas, and she actually claims that some chinchillas, get ready for this, can talk. So we're going to find out about that. Last week we also talked about our mouse problem. Do you want to recap that a little bit? Basically, what was our mouse problem?
My car, the lights came on the dashboard. I didn't know what the problem was. Bob took it into the dealership. They said a mouse had chewed on the O2 sensor. It cost big bucks to get it fixed. Luckily, the car insurance place did fix it, and we got it fixed. But it was just an incredible thing that a little tiny part about the size of a spark plug with wires coming out of it would have been at the dealership like $526. I guess they ended up doing it at my car place for $468. But to think this little tiny mouse could cause all this trouble.
I haven't taken my car in yet. I'm sort of afraid to, because the same day Linda's lights, sort of the check engine light on her dashboard went on, is actually 3 different lights. The check engine light went on my car too, so I'm assuming
let's hope it's not the same thing.
Yeah, but I'm thinking whatever mouse dined on your wires also dined
the same place
on
in
my
your car.
wires. I was surprised in checking the web to find out that this is not an isolated problem.
Hundreds of people.
I found one website. I can't remember the name of it. I'll try and have that somewhere for you, but it has the name Wombat in it, and there were hundreds of people reporting the problem of having mice eating up their car, and some people claim they've had thousands of dollars worth of damage from this. So it's a problem, and one reason that this is happening, according to some of the posters, is that the car manufacturers, in their infinite wisdom, are using a soy-based coating on wires.
Gee, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would suggest they go right to a coating.
Smoky cheese-flavored coating.
Yeah, that way they can replace even more parts and make even more money.
It helps them, I guess.
What we're going to do is we are going to try a couple of things to keep the mice away from the car. Suggestions we found on this website. One are these pellets, which are either real or synthesized. I think they're fox urine.
Because mice are afraid of foxes.
Yeah, we want to check into that. I don't think that they're harming them in any way because, I don't know, but we're going to find...
We don't know.
We'd like to check into that, but anyway, you sprinkle these crystals in a circle around your car, and that's supposed to keep them out. And then there's also a spray product that tastes really bad, but it's not poisonous. There's a little video where the man who runs the company sprays some of this on his hand and actually eats it. And he says
it's nothing poisonous.
He says it doesn't taste good, but it's not poisonous. If you have suggestions, let us know. Let us know how you're keeping mice away from your car without using poisons.
And then they said you could use a wastebasket or some kind of plastic container, tall sides, put some kind of food in it that mice like near your car, and that the mice will go in there to get whatever it is, and because of the slippery sides of this container, they can't get out.
Yeah, you put a
ramp. And then, in my case, I'd carry them down the street or somewhere.
Right. You put a ramp on the outside so
I forgot that. Yeah.
They can follow the ramp and go in to get the food, and they can't come out again.
Get out.
And so then we would take them and carry them down the street and give them a whole new place to live.
Yes.
We would relocate them.
Yes.
We have a few minutes left, and so why don't we get to what we were originally going to talk about? We're going to talk about African gray parrots. We have two. We have Dusty and Bella, and they're very quiet now. They're in the room, but you would know that while we're sitting down to do a show, they're quiet. If we have the radio on...
If we had the radio on, they'd pipe
they'd be
right up.
singing along, and not singing along, sorry, they'd be talking. But we thought we would talk just a little bit about the toys we make for them. Originally, we used to buy toys for Dusty especially.
They're like $15 a toy.
$15 a toy.
And they last, what, 1 hour?
Yeah.
Maybe 5 hours.
There's been occasions where they last a couple of days, but that's kind of a lot of money for 2 days' entertainment. And the toys that last any longer than that, he doesn't want them.
No. The only reason, if they lasted longer than that, it would mean there's something wrong with it that he doesn't like about it. And he never touches it.
So he wants toys that he can destroy.
That's it. Their beaks need to be used, and so they like something they can chew on.
So what we do is we have this block of wood that we drilled holes in, and then we poke leather shoelaces through those holes, and we string these wooden stars that we found on...
He orders them.
Yeah, I ordered them from Windy City Parrot. And I put those on there and tie knots, and then he likes to destroy the stars because they're only about a 1/4 inch thick. But it's interesting how he gets them off the string, off the shoelaces. I would have thought that originally that he would have simply clipped the shoelaces with his beak.
Nope. He unties them.
That's right. He unties the knots, and it's very remarkable. And he used to get a lot of praise from us for untying knots because he just does it with his beak, and I don't even think he holds them in his foot. And after a little while, Dusty decided that we weren't praising him quite enough for that anymore, so he did a new trick. He would take those shoelaces after he got the wooden pieces off them, and he would tie a knot of his own, and he would leave them in his water dish for me. He hasn't done that recently, but for a while, he did it fairly consistently enough that I built up a little collection of them.
Yeah, we had a little collection of these things that, I don't know if he actually tied knots or just wadded them all up somehow. But
he might just he might be wadding them up, but they do form knots.
It does look like a knotted thing. I don't know how he does it. I really don't.
They are quite aesthetically pleasing, and when I did a few talks, I would
take one along.
I would take them along and pass them around to people, and they would always be astounded that a parrot could do that. They're quite attractive.
Yeah.
We have come up with a new idea now for a cheap toy because we're always looking for ways to make cheap toys. And so we use Dixie cups, or I shouldn't call them Dixie cups because they're generics. They're those little tiny, what they used to call bathroom cups, I guess.
Right. You can get a large package of them, has 200 in it or something like that for little or nothing. And the same string that we put those wooden stars on one end I put some wooden stars, and then I thread it through, and on the other end I put the Dixie cups. I put a couple Dixie cups, and because of this wooden piece has 1, 2, 3 sets of holes in it or more, you can put the thread through the various holes with Dixie cups on each one. So he has various Dixie cups he can take off, and the wooden stars too. So he likes that, having that diversity.
He loves it, and our parrot Bella loves them too.
She has a little fight with the Dixie cups.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do a video because she will start punching them. You'd think it was a person with a punching bag.
Oh, she just has a ball.
She loves it, and she tears them all apart. I'm looking at the sad remains of 3 of them on the floor of her cage right now.
She finishes them off pretty good.
So if you have any suggestions for cheap parrot toys, let us know. At one point, we bought wooden ice cream spoons that came pre-drilled from... I think it's Bird Supply of New Hampshire or something like that I found on the web. Dusty liked those pretty well, but they're a little too easy.
Them too fast.
Yeah, they're a little too easy for him. If they had been twice as thick, but I thought that was a good idea because, again, you're not spending a lot of money on toys.
Yeah, and then I go to the thrift shop and I buy belts that I drape over the top of his cage that as it goes down inside the cage, he likes to grab them and he bites them up into pieces, especially buckle. He usually starts with the buckle, and he works his way down, and he just breaks them into pieces. And then they used to cost like 10 cents a piece. Now since they know I come in to get those, I think they upped them to 50 cents a piece.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, I have something like that. But he likes certain ones. He doesn't like real thick leather or anything like that. He likes kind of like thin vinyl ones. So I always have to look for the kind that he likes. But there's usually a pretty good supply of stuff that he does like. And that's actually one of his favorite toys of all. And look how cheap it is, 50 cents. And he likes, especially the buckle. He always bites the buckle off first. That's his biggest challenge. And I'd say that makes just a great toy for not very much money.
We haven't tried it with Bella, have we? I don't know. She might be afraid of it.
Yeah, some of the birds are afraid of different things in their cages, and she might like it after a while.
They're both African Greys, but Dusty is a Congo, and we found that the Congos seem to be a little more aggressive, and Bella is a Timna. She's our second Timna. And they're a little bit
nicer disposition,
but a little bit shyer, a little bit more timid of things. Oh, look at the snow blowing out there.
Oh, it's very pretty.
Well, that's the end of our show. We've gone through a half hour, and this has been our 0-degree weather show. This is What Were You Thinking? I'm Bob Tart, and I'm here with Linda.
Hello.
And so that's the end of this week's show. Thanks for listening, and thanks to our producers. And please give us an email at bob@petliferadio.com. Bye-bye.
Thinking about buying a monkey? How about a ferret or a skunk? Then check out the show that will answer the burning questions. Where do you get them? What do you feed them? How do you take care of them? And most of all, what were you thinking? With exotic pet expert and author Bob Tart. Every week on demand from PetLifeRadio.com.